Okay, so here we are, and behind me, hey everybody, welcome again to my Writing Lair. Welcome down here into the lair for another exciting episode, and I'm planning a special Halloween episode this time around. You see I got my little jack-o'-lantern here propped up on my microphone today, and you might have noticed, let me go ahead, and if you haven't noticed, I did get a haircut, so pretty short compared to what you were seeing last time. So the other hair that you saw, that you've seen in the other videos, was my corona hair. It got pretty long, and I finally went and got it cut. So we'll see. I'll have to compare the two. This is sure a lot more convenient than long hair. But anyway, okay. So special Halloween episode. What I'm planning on doing today is the Writing Lair is going to go on a short but fun and interesting little field trip. Let me give you the background first. So since it's Halloween, I wanted to tell you my story, my Halloween story. Well, it's my true, real haunted house story. That's why you, at the beginning of the video, you got a little teaser of what's coming. So let me tell you what's going on, or let me tell you the story. I'll just jump right into it so the video isn't too long. But this is my true Halloween haunted house story, and let me just preface it by saying the story is true in as much as I have been told, okay? I haven't gone and researched the heck out of it. I didn't go to a library and look at microfiche. Is it fiche? Microfiche? I wasn't researching dusty old volumes from the library of properties and stuff to get this information. But I'll tell you how I got the information, and you can take it for what you will. There is kind of a cool, little twisty part of the end of the story that I find is kind of cool. So I'll get right into it with the story here. Excuse me. All right, so I was about 17 years old, and I was working as a lifeguard at a local pool. And one of my older co-workers, he was a senior, maybe he was going to college already. He's a few years older than me, and his name was Mateo. Really cool guy, Mateo. If you're watching this, you are a really cool guy. So Mateo tells me about this. One night we're lifeguarding together, okay? We're getting ready to close the pool. And he tells me about this thing that the teenagers have been doing, the older kids. We went to different high schools. And the kids from his school were doing this thing called Hell Tour. And I immediately was like, huh? Hell Tour? What's that? So he tells me there's this thing that they were doing where 2 or 3 kids would get in a car and ride around and visit these different spooky locations in Idaho Falls, where I grew up. And there was locations, and you had to go. So you had to go with someone who'd been on it before, so they could show you the places. But it was different haunted locations, different little spooky places, and each one had a story behind it. So they would tell you the story of, there was, and then they tell you some story as you're driving, and then you would get there, and it's all kind of localized in the older downtown historic neighborhoods of Idaho Falls, down by the Snake River. And they would have like some story, and then they would pull up to the house, and they'd be like, and here is the house where it all happened, and you'd get the chills. So that was Hell Tour. I remember there was a knocking grave at the cemetery, supposedly. We never did that one, but you could go and knock on the grave, and wait a second, and you'd hear it knock back. Anyway, knocking grave. There was a skeleton that would appear in the trees by the river. There was one house that had these weird... Okay, this is true. These people had taken the trees in their yard and uprooted the trees. And then... I gotta make sure this is recording still. Okay. They uproot the trees, and then they buried the trees sideways in their front yard, and then sawed the limbs off and stuff, so the trees looked like giant, kind of deformed dinosaur lizard things. And of course they were devil worshippers, right? And, you drive up, and it was creepy. You're in the dark, and you pull up, and there's these trees buried in this yard all sideways and weird. And I remember there was some kind of goblin-y looking, what do you call them, like a gargoyle on the top of a pole. The guy was probably just a very creative chainsaw carving artist. But anyway, so we drive around and do all this stuff. And Mateo asked me if I'd like to go on Hell Tour. And I was like, well, hell yeah. Little joke there. Anyway, no offense. Sorry, pardon my language. So we close up the pool, and Mateo takes me on this Hell Tour, and it was awesome. I loved every minute of it. It was cool. There was an old house with a sculpture, almost a life-size Moses statue out front, but the hood was up, kind of like a monk or something. It was really creepy. And just like, whoa, and I remember there was a street downtown called Crowley Street, and that was always part of it. And do you think it's a coincidence that this is all on Crowley Street? I remember that being part of it. Aleister Crowley, if you haven't heard of Aleister Crowley, look him up. Anyway, so at the Hell Tour, we're getting done, we're wrapping it up, and Mateo says, hey, do you want to see a real haunted house that's not part of Hell Tour? And I'm like, well, yeah. And, and he goes, this isn't part of Hell Tour. This is a house that no one else really knows about, but something happened here at this house that my family knows the people that are, that this happened to, so I can show it to you if you want. And of course, I don't want to see this, you can't tell me that and then not show me. So we go, and he tells me this story. So here's the story, okay? And then after I'm done telling you the story, we're going to go on our little field trip, and I'm going to show you in person what I nicknamed it the Blood Home. And my friends and I call it that to this day. So the Blood Home. So there's this house. It's in an older neighborhood downtown Idaho Falls. And these people, this would have been in the 80s, I guess, that these people were going to buy it. They were excited about it, and really the price was right, and it's a really cool older home. And so, I'm moving my way out of my pumpkin here. So it's in this older part of town, and they were going to buy it, and they were really excited, and they were just getting close to closing the deal and on this house. And so they decided, well, let's show it to the kids. So they had, I don't know how many kids they had. I'm guessing 2 or 3 little kids, a normal family. And they're going to bring their kids and show them this house. And they get there, and they're all excited. They meet the realtor there. People who've bought houses understand how exciting it is. And they get ready to go in. The realtor unlocks the door, and the 2 little kids run in. Yeah! And this other kid, I don't know if he's the oldest, but one of the children, and a little boy, and in my memory he was 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that age range. He gets terrified. His eyes, he's bugging his eyes out, and he's terrified. He doesn't want to go in, and they can't get him to go in the house, and he's crying and wants to go get in the car, and he's like, let's leave. And the family's, well, what's the matter? And he starts telling, well, there's people in there. There's people in there, and they're screaming, and they're crying, and I can see there's a man hanging, and he's seeing all this stuff. And one thing he thought he could see was a red stripe on the wall in the main room. And wow, they're this is kind of concerning. This wasn't normal behavior for their kid. This wasn't usual for him. And unlike typical parents in horror movies, they actually listened. you know. So the realtor's listening to all this, and she happened to know a psychic. She had a friend who's a kind of a local, I don't know if she fortune telling and stuff, but she's a psychic. And she says, well, my friend does palms and readings and stuff, and she's kind of a psychic. You want me to call her? And they were like, well, what can it hurt? So they call this psychic down. I don't know if it was a couple days later or whatever, but they call the psychic down. And the psychic takes one look in that house, and she says, yes, there's definitely something going on. There's a negative energy here. Some horrible things have happened in this home, and that negative energy is still here with this house. And she walked in, and she could hear the same thing. She says, there's scream. I can hear the screams. People were killed here. And they told her about the red stripe, she says the red stripe is blood. Someone had their hand, a bloody hand, and they went and wiped it all along the wall. And that's what the red stripe is, that your son can see. Only he can see it because he's sensitive, like I am, She said, I can see it. So that gave them enough pause to consider not buying the house. And they went and they went and did a little research on the property, and they discovered this house was built. It was one of the earliest homes in the area, I guess, and very old. And it's a nice house, but around, I guess, during the Great Depression, for a few years the house was abandoned. The family that lived in it, they were devastated by the market crash and what happened during the Depression, and they had to abandon the house, and they just left and abandoned it. And the bank was so overwhelmed with homes like this that they would just board it up a little bit, and they know they're not going to be able to sell it, so they just kind of board it up. And I guess over a period of a few years, vagrants lived in this house, and people moving from one location to the next. This house was just, there'd be squatters in there, homeless, vagrants, and hobos, and that kind of people. And this is all according to the story I heard when I was a teenager from Mateo. And so I have not researched any of this myself. But according to the story I heard, there was a period of time where people were going missing. And this is during the same period of time when this house was abandoned. And they think that there was, at one point in time, there was a group of squatters living in this home that may have been kidnapping and murdering people. Maybe they were part of some kind of cult or something. So that was the story, and eventually these people, they moved on. No one was ever caught or prosecuted. No bodies were ever found or anything like that. But once that group moved on, the disappearances stopped. So that's the story, and it was enough. I don't think the family, and I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure the way I heard it, this family did not buy the house. They're like, well, we can't force our little boy to live here if he's seeing bodies and hearing voices and things like that. So that's the story. And here's the twist. Well, you know what? I'll tell you the twist when we get back, okay? I'll wrap it up with the little twist. So right now, the Writing Lair is going to go on our little field trip. It's just going to be a minute or two. And we're going to go check out the Blood Home. So come with me, and we'll go check it out. Okay, so here we are. We're in the historic one of the historic downtown neighborhoods of Idaho Falls. And behind me here, I don't know if you can hear me, I'll get a little closer. So behind me here, this is the house. This is the blood home that I was telling you about. It's actually, I think, a pretty neat old house, but this is it right here. You can get a shot of the old iron gate here and the old rock wall. It looks just like it did that night when Mateo came and showed this house to me. It hasn't changed a bit. There are people living here now. I haven't talked to them. I'd love to talk to them. Maybe someday they'll see this video and invite me to come in. But anyway, this is it. I just wanted to show you real quick. The wind's blowing, probably making it hard to hear me. But this, I really actually like it. One Halloween we went out and actually tried to trick or treat here, but no one was home. Anyway, loud car coming up, but a pretty neat old neighborhood and actually a pretty neat old house. So this is the legendary blood home, and anyway, with that, we will go ahead and we'll go back down to the Writing Lair and finish up this video. All right. Okay, we are back from our little field trip to downtown Idaho Falls, where I just showed you in person out front of the property, the blood home of Idaho Falls. So I will finish up real quick the twist part I was telling you about on that story. So that's the story, and Mateo parked right out front there and told me the story, and it was very creepy and scary. And I remember driving home that night in the dark alone. He dropped me back off at the pool, and I drove home feeling a little weirded out by the whole story. And as years went by, I also took my friends on Hell Tour, and I talked about the blood home, and I would show it to my friends, and we all thought it was creepy because we knew that the rest of Hell Tour was just for fun, but the blood home was the real deal, or so we thought. And as we had no reason not to believe Mateo's story, because Mateo is a cool guy. Anyway, so years go by, and I start to, you get a little older and you start wondering, I wonder if that whole blood home story is true, And lo and behold, one day, I was in my 20s, so, 10 years or so go by, and I'm watching the news. It's Halloween, and I think I'm getting ready for trick-or-treaters to come over. I'm putting the candy in the bowl. I don't think I had kids yet, so I was the kind of stay home, and I wasn't cool enough to go to Halloween parties, so I'm getting ready for trick-or-treaters, and I'm watching the news, and the local news station here, one of them, decided they're doing a fun little story on a local haunted house. And I'm just, that stuff interests me, so I'm watching this news report, and I couldn't believe it when they start telling the story of this haunted house, and it is the blood home. I kid you not. And at the time, the people that were there were using it as an office space. It wasn't a residence. So they went inside with their cameras, and they interviewed the people who were occupying the house at the time, and it was classic haunted house stuff. Doors. They talked about doors opening and closing by themselves, cold spots, thumping around, especially if you were the only one home. A lot of times someone would be working late in their office, and they'd hear someone coming up the stairs, and they'd always heard someone on the stairs, the creaking, and they would come out to see who was there, and there'd be no one there, but one of the pictures on the wall that went along the stairwell would be crooked, and they would straighten it and then leave, go back to work, and then when they went to leave, it'd be crooked again. Stuff like that. Really cool, just your classic haunted house stuff. But to me, it was important because here I had kind of to an extent, had kind of, let that story just take a back space, or I wouldn't say I wasn't believing anymore, but I had categorized it as in, oh, cool story. But then, quite a coincidence to me that, and they didn't mention in the news report, they didn't mention anything about the past, the family that wanted to move in, and the psychic little boy, or the vagrants living in the house during the Depression. None of that was mentioned. It was just, hey, this is some people that are willing to share with us the haunted house they work in. I've noticed over the years that the house tends to exchange, and from my perspective, I haven't tracked it or anything, but it seems like it's come up for sale a few more times than you would think it should, and it makes me wonder. Today I was tempted to just go knock on the door. Maybe one of these days I will. And I'd also like to put out there, there might be people who watch this video who recognize this house, recognize the part of town we're in, and recognize where I was. And I'd just like to ask all of you, if that's the case, please respect the people that own this property and the people in this house, and don't harass, don't go up and knock on their door. I intentionally did not give the location, the exact street. I didn't show the address because I don't wish for their, for people to be harassing these people. So if you do recognize the house and its location, again, please respect their privacy, and don't harass or bother them about it. And as much as I kind of want to, but anyway, that's the story. That's my Halloween special. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you liked the other ones on there. And be sure to drop a like on the video and possibly subscribe. That helps me out a lot. And I look forward to making more videos like this for you. And today's video wasn't so much about writing, but as a author who likes to write horror and supernatural, I thought this was appropriate for Halloween. So this is my Halloween special. If you'd like to read more about my story, I also wrote about this story on my blog, Brady Writing at blogspot.com. I'll put the link in the description, so you can go there and read it if you'd like. And that's it. I hope you're all having a great Halloween. I wish you all a happy Halloween, and hope happy and a safe Halloween, and be careful out there, because you never know. It is Halloween. So I'm hearing footsteps right now. Things going bump in the night. Okay, until next time, adios. We'll see you later from the Writing Lair. Take care.